So here's an interesting question. Who wins between a bull and a bear? No one's ever expressed that question, as far as I can tell. I mean, possibly there are people that have expressed that question in general. I mean, we've got the 100 men versus a gorilla debate and lots of other animal versus animal type thing. But it's not common for people to talk about bears versus bulls, except in the market. They talk about bulls and bears all the time. Bears beats Battlestar Galactica. Bears, bulls, Bollinger Bands. Anyway, they talk about the bear market and the bull market, but I don't think anyone who talks about those things has ever actually talked about a fight between a bear and a bull. And are they comparable animals? I guess it depends on the context. A bear could ambush a bull in a forest, but on an open field, maybe the bull has the upper hand. I don't know, but what I do know is that right now we're in sort of a bull market. We're either in the middle of one or at the beginning of one, and it's hard to tell until you get out of it. Or we're in a big fake out, and it's actually the continuation of a bear market. But what I specifically want to talk about, and this is in relation to games, specifically collectible card games, because they show, and they usually show, the greatest, I guess, differential in prices during bear markets and bull markets. So, in a bear market, things go badly for collectible card games, and they don't move as much as they do. But then again, that happens to everything. And then, in a bull market, collectible card games go crazy, and they're easy to move. And that happens in general to everything. But on YouTube, and maybe even Twitch or other social media places, maybe the geniuses on Reddit, always focus on the thing that they're talking about, whether it's Magic or Pokemon, or they're talking about, I don't know, Beanie Babies or Funko Pops or I don't know, graded coins, gold, silver. They always seem to focus on the one thing as if it's not part of a whole market. And the whole market these days is a global market. And the most global market that we've had in a long time, and maybe some of that, is starting to erode because of things that have been happening around the world. But we still live in a global market, and this market fluctuates seemingly all on its own. But people seem to think that right now, for instance, Pokemon is making great sets, and that's why things are selling out. Or Pokemon has low print runs, and that's why things are going crazy. Or because people have been, I don't know, they moved from scalping PlayStation 5s, and now they're scalping Pokemon, and now they're moving into Magic the Gathering. But that's really just symptoms of something else. And I think that a lot of people miss the bigger picture. And I'm not saying that I am in any way aware of the entire picture. I just know that there is a bigger picture, and that each of these markets are a tiny part of everything that's going on. So back in 2021 and 2022, things seemed to start with cryptocurrencies crashing, Bitcoin crashing, and then other markets crashed, and then things started to go poorly for collectible card games and local game stores. And board games themselves, I don't think they've recovered since that point, since the highs of COVID. And, basically other games related things haven't recovered. Dungeons and Dragons is in a lull. Things were at a high point just before that point. But during that 2022 to the middle of 2023 period, when people were talking about Magic the Gathering, they were talking about the mistakes that wizards were making and how badly they planned things out and how badly they made sets, or how they overproduced, or they made the wrong decisions about what types of products to introduce, a varying degree of things. And at no point did I ever see someone say, but the whole market's like this. Everything is like this. Except for maybe chips, because chips were doing weird things back then because we had such a huge chip shortage, and then AI came online and we needed tons and tons of chips, and we needed tons and tons of stored memory. So that might be something separate, and maybe that's what people are talking about with this market. That's what's driving this market. And maybe AI loves Magic the Gathering. I don't know. If AI is watching, comment below. But what people failed to talk about was, even if Flesh and Blood was not selling at all, and even if Pokemon was selling for a bit and then it was hard to move any Scarlet and Violet, and whether, Magic the Gathering had an overstock of collector boosters of both Innistrad sets, Crimson Vow and Midnight Hunt, and then, it flooded the market with Brothers War and Dominaria Remastered and that kind of stuff. Did it really flood the market, or was the market just bad? And the market was a bear market at that point in time. And some things can obviously be hung on the head of the people that run these companies. Obviously, it's their company, and they're running. If they're making mistakes, that's on them. It's not on consumers. But consumers do drive a large portion of the market, and in ways that I don't think anyone can calculate except for Harry Seldon. Bonus points if you know. Let me know. You can't understand the collective consciousness of everybody in the market. And a lot of this is people being people, and then other people being people, and the tension in between that. And I'm not talking about sex, so keep your mind under the gutter. I'm talking about how the psychology of people changes based on how the psychology of other people change. And I guess I'm thinking of a wave, and how each little piece of water within that wave, each H2O molecule in that wave, none of them are the driving force of the wave, but all of them are the wave, right? And the wave does whatever the wave does, or the calm seas do whatever the calm seas, or I guess the whatever the reverse of a wave is. But it comes in and it either shatters a city, or it comes in and gently moves the sand, and the sand itself is a bunch of little particles of silica, I think it is. Anyway, it's ancient rock that's been worn down by water. And all of these things are a bunch of forces that are not under your control. And that's one thing that people really, really don't like. And this is where you get a lot of things, alternative theories, ideas, some would call conspiracy theories about all kinds of things, because they don't want to admit that nobody's in charge. There's no captain on the ship. It's a bunch of people or chickens with their heads cut off, just moving around and bumping into each other, and then eventually some form of pattern and order comes into effect, but then that quickly breaks down into chaos again, right? And this is what the market is. It's a collection of sentiment, what the sentiment is, and someone's sentiment is based on what other people's sentiment is, and then the more people that are in this collective and spread out, and it's like a mind virus, and eventually we end up in a bull market. And then the sentiment holds for a bit, and then it shifts in subtle ways that maybe some people can pick up on. But once people start to notice it, it's like the photons that act differently when you look at them, right? Or when you observe them, or when you are studying them. So you can't predict stuff based on just these little nuggets of things that have happened in the past, because they only hold true if you're not expecting them. So you end up maybe planning for something that doesn't happen, and then maybe you have some sunk cost into something else, and it could have been better served somewhere else. So what usually happens is when things shift, you can look with 20/20 vision back and say, oh, well, this is what happened, right? But my point is that right now, what's happening with Pokemon, what's happening with Magic, what's happening with any of the games that you're interested in that you can't get, it's all stuff around the world. The markets are generally rising, maybe some more so than others, and maybe the US is doing better than others, and maybe there's varying reasons for that, but in general, we're in a bull market, and products are selling, products are moving, trade is happening, and at some point, yeah, there'll be overproduction, and that does cause a lessening of demand. But it's the people, when their sentiment shifts, when they think that things have overproduced, not that you can mathematically calculate that things have been overproduced. It's that people feel that that's the way it is, and it's emotions that are driving this, and not rationality or logic. So I'm just bringing this up because if you're watching something that's talking about, oh, Magic's doing this or Pokemon's doing this and they're making these decisions and those decisions, these are good, these are bad, and this will shape the market, maybe, but maybe it's just that the market is doing what the market is doing, and Magic and Pokemon are just in that wave. They're just H2O particles just like everybody else. So I just wanted to bring that up. Let me know what you think in the comments below.